welcome here to the home of the undisputed champion, and of course Ferrari's biggest fan, as we are reporting from the final round of the first third of the 2025 FIA Formula 1 season. We are reporting from the crown jewel, from the scintillating Monaco Grand Prix, which is of course the round 8 of this year's championship. And you know, we got ever so close to our first Grand Prix victory of the season. I was almost thinking that it will be the Monaco's national anthem, with the Italian national anthem playing once again, almost exactly 1 year on from that first victory in since pretty much Louis Chiron won in Monaco. The homeboy Charles Leclerc obviously realized his childhood dream last year, and this year has gotten ever so close. I do believe Charles Leclerc definitely could have won the Monaco Grand Prix, and this was the best race of the season for Scuderia Ferrari, and we will tell you everything about it, as obviously there was lots of action, even though ultimately the race still ended as it finished, which is why Charles Leclerc was so frustrated when he missed out on the pole position by a mere 10th of a second. Like, you can really hear the expletives, which really showed the emotion which he had, because he knew he has probably, and now we definitely know it for sure, lost the Monaco Grand Prix, of course, at the end of the qualifying. And that was a real pity, because up until that point the weekend was just picture perfect. It wasn't just the blue sky, obviously, coloring this again the best place in Europe, in the beautiful colors, as obviously from the Mediterranean. Obviously you open up with this very iconic countryside of the Monte Carlo and the Monaco, so you knew it was set to be a beautiful weekend, kind of just like Imola, with the blue skies. Again, it looks absolutely wonderful. Like, it's like the early summer here in the southern Europe is here, and yeah, all that needed to be, just like for example in Imola, and just like it hopefully will be in Barcelona, as this is of course still the second triple header of the season, and this is only the second race of that triple header of the season. It should have been a great Ferrari victory. I thought we've gotten really close, and yeah, once practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, once Leclerc top all the sessions, you knew that we haven't lost any of the pace here in the Principality. In fact, we've gotten even faster, but there was a real challenge for the first time in history. If you mastered the lap around the Circuit de Monaco in less than 70 seconds, you would get the pole position, and pretty much from there on you could drive towards the victory, which sadly wasn't the Ferrari driver. And so, as I said, the practice was so great, so it all hinged obviously on the qualifying. We did very well with Leclerc qualifying 1, qualifying 2, really had a pace, but the McLarens just found a little bit more pace in the qualifying 3. So in this race reaction, we were always obviously telling you, what we should have done in order to win, and that would be for Leclerc to plant it on the pole position, or Hamilton, but he was a couple tenths down, and then from pretty much then on, even though there was that 2 mandatory pit stop required in the race, it proved to be, I think, easier to manage than most people thought. Obviously for the engineers, they didn't know what the race would throw in, but since there was a lot of team games being played, and the teams even down the order started to play in the team games, for example, which normally would be done by obviously the leading driver, right, who would simply go a bit too slow, so there would not be any gap appearing, and then basically picking up the pace as, for example, the pit stops would approach. Or you would simply wait for that almost a mandatory almost that expected safety car, which almost happens every time. We didn't have a full safety car, we didn't have a red flag like last year, because there was no big accident. But you do know, for example, from the virtual safety car, that there was still opportunity, for example, for you to make an early pit stop, and then pretty much you could just drive to the end of the race, as you found out when I did, for example, my race, on just 1 set of tires. So overall, there was obviously a bit of a variety thrown into this race. But what basically happened was that, the front of the field, especially Norris with Leclerc, would simply drive very fast, or pretty much very close to the race speed, and they would be able to establish the gap. And as a result, it was really difficult to make any impression in a pit stop. But I do believe we still had a chance in the race. So in qualifying, qualifying 3, when Leclerc missed out, by that tenth of a second, which I believe was mostly actually, through the final few corners, especially, going through the Rascas. That's where McLaren, gained that crucial advantage. I believe that Leclerc obviously didn't want, maybe to go too fast around, for example, the swimming pool section, which is where he crashed in 2021. 2021 still secured the pole position, but then couldn't start because obviously the gearbox was damaged. This time has gotten nicely through it. But again, Norris, was just a bit braver, I would say. Has thrown that car around a bit more. Actually, on the official Formula One website, not really on my official channel. Obviously, they have this great feature which they talk about, the Ghost Lab, where you can see, where each driver, has won it or lost it respectively. So you should definitely check it out. And yeah, once we were starting from, P2, it was imperative to get a good start, right? And actually, Leclerc has gotten a great start. Norris looked up, but what a pity he didn't end up in Sainte Devote. That would be fantastic if he just, if his race ended there. But, he still made it, made it stick, because obviously you are not racing at a full speed. He kept the first place. Leclerc was over him, but then they were able to immediately kind of drop Piastri with Verstappen. Hamilton obviously qualified 4th, but had to start 7th because of that impeding of Verstappen going in a Mercedes, which was completely his race engineer's mistake. So something Scuderia Ferrari that we have to iron out, because obviously starting from P4, the result could have been even better for us as it went. Hamilton, obviously he was told that Verstappen on his push lap, I believe it was in qualifying 1 if I'm precise, was actually slowing down, when in fact it was just a computer glitch and Verstappen was still on his flying lap. So if you impede him, of course it's a 3-place penalty. So Hamilton started 7th even though he qualified 4th. And then, has gotten a good decent start, and it was pretty much, running behind, the front runners. But then what happened was that Liam Lawson for the Racing Bulls, he has, dropped back quite a lot. And what that basically meant was that, as a result, there appeared to be a gap, right? So for Hadjar, he obviously stopped, he has gotten into the gap. Alonso has also then made his pit stop, and that left Hamilton really running 5th, and he very quickly was able to establish the gap of around 20 seconds. In Monaco, the pit stops are actually relatively fast, about 18 seconds, because it's relatively short, and you're actually just coming out behind, or past the Sainte Devote, right? So past the turn 1, and actually, you don't take the Anthony Notch, final corner. So actually, it's one of the shortest pit lanes. So as a result, Hamilton did a great job, and pretty much, very early on, with hardly 20 laps to go, he was then assured of the 5th place, but, by the time probably lost a bit more. But, at the front, it was really pulsating. So, obviously, once, there was a gap, then Norris, he did stop first. So Leclerc went a little bit, longer on that first stop. We obviously started on the mediums, right? Just like Norris, just like Piastri, Verstappen, Hamilton started on the hards. For the second stop, basically, everybody, I believe, bar, Verstappen went to the hard tire, Verstappen went to the medium, but he was kind of in the 4th place out of the picture. So what happened was that Leclerc was leading the race, for a while, but then, once he stopped, when basically, Piastri is the one who kind of initiated it. But for Piastri, they had a slow first pit stop. So, as a result, right, when that happened, then obviously Leclerc stopped to cover him more, even though, I thought maybe if he keeps going, it could have been to his advantage. But in the end, actually, you kind of, you would be losing more by just staying out. And then, for that second pit stop, we were actually catching up to the back markers, and some drivers were driving really slowly because the teammates like Lawson, right, he would drop back by a couple of seconds a lap, just like Sainz did, so that allowed their teammates to obviously then stop, retain the position, because you had to make the 2 mandatory stops. So they did play a really good team game. It was actually exciting for me to watch. Obviously so difficult in Monaco to overtake, but as a result, it also meant that almost most of the field, basically only the top 5 drivers, stay on a lead lap. So there was a lot of blue flags. Obviously, Mercedes-Benz had a terrible race, obviously, being led, pretty much 2 laps 2 times, which is incredible, right? Normally that happens when I'm racing, and obviously, when I'm, spinning around, right, and then I get lapped several times. But here, there was a massive pace difference. difference, because at the front, the drivers were going really fast, as evidenced by the fastest lap by Norris. And when it came to the final stops, obviously Piastri, he did stop first again, then basically that led to Leclerc stopping, because Hamilton obviously, with that alternate strategy, dropped back, so he was, near Piastri, almost, kind of overtaking him, but, that's why the McLaren stopped, right? So Piastri retained 4th place, and then Hamilton pretty much drove it, as he described, in a no man's land to the 5th place. But Norris, he was catching up at the back markers, right? And there, Leclerc, he really stopped, but when you have only one lap on the shortest circuit on the calendar, he was only able to get within a couple of seconds of Verstappen, and then the pulsating 20 laps, where Verstappen was the one who didn't stop. So as everybody has gotten through the back markers, we were running pretty much, the reigning world champion, behind him you had, Norris and Leclerc going behind, and obviously Verstappen was probably hoping that Leclerc would overtake Norris and take points of Norris, and, it was quite interesting. For example, lap 70, 72, Leclerc had opportunities, but basically would have to risk a lot going off the line, trying to overtake, but where? Into the hairpin, always seeing, a bit farther up, same into the chicane, which are actually, I believe, the 2 best overtaking spots. Next one will be Sainte Devote, but, Norris, just like pretty much any driver, you have to recharge your battery and use it all on the main straight. So, basically, as a driver behind you, always reacting, to the driver, you cannot basically, just accelerate, before he does, because the apexes are so tight. So, I felt like, it was a great effort by Charles, obviously, but it was very difficult, maybe into La Rascas, but again, there's not so much of a space. And again, let's remember, as the race finished, and obviously you had 2 McLarens and Leclerc being sandwiched in between them, obviously the Scarlet red Ferrari in between the 2 orange cars. This was only the 2nd time that Leclerc has actually finished on the podium, I believe, in his whole racing career. So, he's gotten the win. This time, this year it was Norris realizing the dream, but if we qualified, a little bit better, didn't make the mistakes with Hamilton, perhaps double podium like we predicted would have been on the cards, and a great Leclerc victory, and we would have been absolutely celebrating. But I really did enjoy the race. I thought it was, well executed by Ferrari. We really tried, but I do know, as if you, for example, watch my race, just how difficult it is, to overtake, especially with this generation of the cars, because even if you throw it into the hairpin, you still, if you leave the space, the other car can still go around, as evidence when Antonelli and Bortoleto crashed. They were able to just go around each other, and then basically it was the Bortoleto, right, who then ran off the road and hit a barrier. So here for Leclerc, the danger would be obviously, go ahead and try it, but also you might be the one ending up in a barrier, right? So he didn't, and as a result, the race ended with Norris' 6th career victory, which obviously is his first in Monaco. Our Prince of Monaco didn't win, but now let's use this beautiful Scarlet Red Retina iMac to show it to you, and to show you also the Drivers' Championship. So over here, I'm sure you can see it really nicely over there. So you can see here Norris winning, and yes, obviously for the other drivers that we have over here, we then had Leclerc finishing 3 seconds down, same for Piastri. Then we had Verstappen, who always stopped on the last lap, but finished 20 seconds behind. Hamilton kind of in a no man's land, but I guess that strategy didn't quite work for Hamilton. Obviously for Leclerc, using the 2 mediums was definitely faster, but after the penalty, what could Hamilton do? 5th was kind of maximizing the situation. 6, Isaac Hadjar did a really good job for Racing Bulls, and then 7, Esteban Ocon. So they obviously benefited from 8, Liam Lawson, who I believe played the best strategy game, by backing up the people, but then still establishing enough of a gap to stop and keep the 8th place. I was really surprised, because I thought Lawson, he would drop out of the points. But both obviously Racing Bulls scored their best finishes in the career, and these are Lawson's first points, and Williams, they did a good job, 9 Albon, and 10 obviously former Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz. Let's take a look over here what it means for the Drivers' Championship, right? So Oscar Piastri retains his lead, 161 points, but it's getting ever so thinner. Lando Norris is second with 158 points over here, and yes, we can then see Max Verstappen 136 points. He cannot be leading now after Barcelona race, where obviously the new directives will come through. so definitely check out the race introduction, because from the first race of the second third of the 2025 season, I believe we can have a completely different pecking order. Hopefully with us finally picking up race victories, because as you can see, for George Russell, 99 points, didn't score any points. This is exactly what we needed. Best result for Scuderia Ferrari, could have still been better. 5th is Charles Leclerc, 79 points, could have been 86 if he won, but yes, we will now be challenging Russell directly in Barcelona. 6th is Lewis Hamilton, 63 points. He established a nice cushion to Andrea Antonelli, who didn't score any points for Mercedes-Benz. He's on 48. And then we can see, yes, 8 is Alexander Albon, 42 points, 9 Esteban Ocon there with 20 points, and 10 Isaac Hadjar, courtesy of his 8 points, he is in the top 10 with 15 points. 11 is then Lance Stroll, 14 points, and then you can see we have Carlos Sainz, 12 with 12 points. I guess, he always likes to have 11th place, 11 points, 12th place, 12 points. So despite the fact that he scored, he actually dropped a place in the table. 13 is Yuki Tsunoda for Red Bull Racing now with 10 points. 14 Esteban Ocon, 7 points. 15 Nico Hülkenberg, 6 points. And then you have 16 Oliver Behrman, 6 points. 17 Liam Lawson, 4 points. His first points. We thought obviously 18 Fernando Alonso would get points. His engine expired. Otherwise he would have probably finished 6th or 7th. So he's still on 0 points. Jack Doohan, 0 points, didn't race, so didn't get a chance to expand or to get his first points of the season. And 20th Franco Colapinto with 0 points, and 21st Gabriel Bortoleto, basically the only driver over here who crashed. Well, Pierre Gasly crashed, but Bortoleto also crashed but continued, so stayed well outside of the points. So we are 5th and 6th, as you can see, and this is great. Again, we did lose some points to the McLarens, but we are making it back in the table. For the constructors in the Formula 1 team, so McLaren is dominating with 319 points. We do not like to see that, and we were whisked just a Charles Leclerc victory from being second in the standing. Second is Mercedes with 147 points, but look how close it is. Can you imagine if this was for a lead? Third, Red Bull Racing, 143 points, and as for Ferrari, 142 points. If the points from China wouldn't be taken off for the double disqualification, we will already be second. So this is great. We are back in the business. I believe after the triple header, finally we will be second in the standings, and this is exactly what we need, and hopefully we will start winning so we can also rescue the Drivers' Championship. 5th is Williams, 54 points, already blossoming under James Vowles. 6th Haas, 26 points, another engineer of the Japanese obviously origin leading the team, and look, they are punching above their weight. 7th Racing Bulls, 22 points, did very well in Monaco. 8 Aston Martin, 14 points, and 9 is then Alpine, 7 points. 10 Kick Sauber with 6 points. So this is how it looks like in the teams. I actually can't believe that we are still 4th, but yeah, this is great. We made up a lot of ground, still lost a bit of a ground to McLaren's. This is how the Drivers' Championship obviously looks like, but at least we are there, and this is very, very important. This is how the race then finished, so we can say bye-bye. We don't need to see Norris obviously celebrating much too often. Yeah, congratulations to him. Overall, great Monaco Grand Prix. I greatly enjoyed it, and I'm sure you guys enjoyed it, as well. It was great to put more mandatory pit stops, but again, it's such a difficult track to overtake. You carry lots of risks. Obviously, Leclerc did try it, I believe, in 2019 in his first race for Scuderia Ferrari, and it's like one overtake works, maybe the second one just works, and then the third one, you end up blocking the whole track because there is a crash. So yeah, as expected, but it was a great celebration, obviously, of just how grand and luxurious we could say, but just how beautiful, obviously, Formula 1 can be. And yeah, for us, what a pity we cannot be celebrating. Obviously, we would have loved, to play that beautiful national anthem of both Monaco and Ferrari, or Italy, of course, here at the Monaco Grand Prix. It would be ever so popular. You could see Prince Albert, obviously, just wanted to have a chat with Leclerc, right? But really being disappointed that he couldn't celebrate. I guess must have been the white overalls, right? Don't understand why we didn't race in the red overalls, but overall, yeah, this is how it finished. This is our best result in the 2025-2025 season, and I'm sure it's gonna only get better from here now on, right? Yes, so this was the Smiley Sun champion, and yeah, we cannot wait, to see what happens. Obviously, as we are moving, we just came from Italy, right? So we came from the east, and we are moving further down the west, to the testing capital of Formula 1, and obviously the capital of Spanish champions, FC Barcelona, for the next round. But for now on, let's enjoy the life of the champions, which is on full display here in Monte Carlo, Monaco. And yeah, let's celebrate, our second podium of the season and second podium ever for Charles Leclerc at his home race. It was a great race. We greatly enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully we can get back to the winning ways very soon, right? So let me know how you loved the race, and yeah. This is it, guys. We are off partying. This was Monaco Grand Prix, presented by Andy's Smiley champion. Forza Ferrari, Forza Charles. You can do it. Forza Hamilton. You will be even faster. And we cannot wait for the new set of rules and upgrades to push us to the front.